He was Rome's golden boy, hailed as a savior, a charismatic leader who promised a new beginning and showered his people with gifts. He was the last surviving son of a legendary war hero. And when he took the throne at just 24 years old, the Roman world was ecstatic. In him, they saw a clean break from the paranoid, dreary rule of the emperor before him, Tiberius. But a mysterious illness would shatter his mind, twisting the celebrated leader into a paranoid tyrant whose name would become synonymous with cruelty. He started as a beloved ruler, but his reign would end in a storm of blood and betrayal. This is the story of the emperor who became a butcher. The year is 37 AD, a new emperor. Gaius Caesar Germanicus, better known by his childhood nickname, Caligula, has just taken the throne, and the city of Rome erupts in celebration. For years, the people had lived under the thumb of the reclusive and feared Tiberius, the same emperor responsible for the exile and deaths of Caligula's own mother and brothers. Romans were desperate for a ruler they could finally love, and for a little while, Caligula gave them every reason to. His first months in power were a whirlwind of reform and generosity. Caligula started by giving a surprisingly heartfelt eulogy for Tiberius, but then immediately got to work undoing his predecessor's oppressive legacy. He brought back political exiles and, in a grand public ceremony, burned the records of the hated treason trials. He got rid of unpopular taxes, instantly winning over the common people and business owners. Tiberius had been a penny pincher, filling the imperial treasury. Caligula threw the doors wide open. He staged lavish gladiatorial games and chariot races, brilliant spectacles that kept the public entertained and loyal. He also kicked off ambitious construction projects, including 2 massive aqueducts, the Aqua Claudia and the Agno Novestu, secure Rome's water supply for the future. Ancient writers describe a city breathing a collective sigh of relief. The young emperor, who, as a boy, had worn miniature army boots, or caligae, earning him his famous nickname, was living up to the legacy of his popular father, the great general Germanicus. He was handsome, charming, and seemed to genuinely care about his people. The Senate handed him immense power, and the military, fiercely loyal to his family name, adored him. It truly seemed like Rome's brightest days were just ahead. But this golden age wouldn't last. Shadow was looming, one that would soon plunge the emperor and the entire empire into a nightmare of madness and bloodshed. Just 7 or 8 months into his reign, right at the peak of his popularity, Caligula fell gravely ill. The ancient sources are vague on what it was, describing it only as a terrible sickness that brought him to the brink of death. The entire empire held its breath. Citizens gathered in the streets, offering prayers and even their own lives in exchange for his recovery. When he finally emerged from the illness, the relief was immense. But the man who recovered was not the same one who had fallen ill. The cheerful, generous ruler was gone. In his place stood a man eaten alive by suspicion and paranoia. So what could have caused such a drastic change? Modern historians and medical experts have a few theories. Some suggest he suffered from encephalitis, a brain inflammation that can trigger permanent personality changes and paranoia. Others point to temporal lobe epilepsy, a disorder known to cause delusions and aggressive outbursts. There's even the possibility of severe lead poisoning, a common problem in ancient Rome, where the toxic metal was used in everything from pipes to cookware. Whatever the cause, the effect was catastrophic. Ancient historians all agree the illness was the turning point. Caligula became convinced that everyone was plotting against him. He was tormented by crippling insomnia, often found wandering the palace halls in the dead of night, unable to sleep for more than a few hours. The man who had been Rome's hope was now its greatest fear. The golden age was over. The reign of the butcher had begun. First to feel the sting of Caligula's new reality were those closest to him. His paranoia knew no limits. He had his cousin and co-heir, Tiberius Gemellus, executed on flimsy charges of conspiracy. He forced his own father-in-law to commit suicide. He even turned on the man who had secured his throne, the Praetorian prefect Macro, and ordered his death. Senators who had once prayed for his health were now accused of hypocrisy and put to death. He brought back the very same treason trials he had so publicly abolished, now using them as a weapon to eliminate anyone he even suspected of being disloyal. His cruelty was matched only by his spiraling delusions of grandeur. Caligula declared himself a living god. He'd appear in public, dressed as deities like Hercules or Apollo, and demanded that people worship him. He had the heads of famous god statues lopped off and replaced with ones that looked like him. In a stunning display of arrogance, he ordered a bridge built from his palace to the temple of Jupiter, just so he could go and consult with the god as an equal. His most infamous plan was to place a colossal statue of himself in the sacred temple in Jerusalem, an act of sacrilege so profound it was only stopped because local officials managed to stall until he was dead. To fund his extravagant lifestyle and divine fantasies, Caligula bled Rome's treasury dry. When the money ran out, he turned to extortion. He slammed the public with crushing new taxes on everything from weddings to lawsuits. He would accuse wealthy citizens of imaginary crimes just to confiscate their estates. The historian Suetonius even claims he opened a brothel inside the palace, forcing the wives and daughters of senators to work there. His actions grew more and more bizarre, designed to humiliate the Roman elite. The most legendary example, of course, is his relationship with his favorite horse, Insiditus. The horse lived in a marble stable with an ivory manger and wore a collar of precious jewels. Caligula would throw dinner parties in the horse's name. Then, in what has to be the ultimate insult to the Senate, he announced his plan to make Incitatus a consul, one of the highest political offices in Rome. He was assassinated before he could actually do it. But the message was crystal clear. This is how little I think of you. His military campaigns were just as absurd. In 40 AD, he marched a massive army to the northern coast of Gaul, supposedly to invade Britain. But right at the last second, he ordered his legions to stop. Their new mission? To collect seashells from the beach, which he declared were spoils from the ocean, a tribute stolen from the god Neptune. It was a bizarre act that deeply humiliated his soldiers and showed just how detached from reality he had become. His cruelty became a public spectacle. He allegedly forced parents to watch their sons' executions and was said to kill for his own amusement. During one sacrifice, instead of striking the animal, he supposedly turned and killed the priest standing next to him. As one historian bluntly put it, believed he had the right to do anything to anybody. If you rule by fear, you shouldn't be surprised when that fear turns on you. By 41 AD, Caligula had made an enemy of every powerful group in Rome. The Senate despised him for the constant humiliation. The aristocracy hated him for stealing their wealth and honor. And, most importantly, he'd lost the respect of the one group that truly kept him in power, the Praetorian Guard. The conspiracy that finally brought him down was led by one of their own, an officer named Cassius Chaerea. Chaerea was a veteran soldier, but Caligula had subjected him to endless mockery, taunting his high-pitched voice and assigning him humiliating passwords like Venus or Priapus. Driven by a desire for revenge and a genuine belief that he was saving Rome, Chaerea brought together a group of officers and senators who all agreed the tyrant had to die. Their chance came on January 24th, 41 AD, during a series of games held at the palace. As Caligula was leaving a theater performance through a secluded underground hallway, the conspirators cornered him. Chaerea reportedly struck the first blow, shouting, "Take that!" The others then swarmed in. In a brutal echo of what happened to his great-great-grandfather Julius Caesar, Caligula was stabbed more than 30 times. His last words were reportedly a defiant scream, "I live." But the assassins weren't finished. To make sure Caligula's bloodline was completely extinguished, they rushed to the imperial apartments. There, they murdered his wife Caesonia and their young daughter, Julia Drusilla. The emperor, who had declared himself a god, was left dead in a palace corridor, his family slaughtered right along with him. Caligula's reign lasted just under 4 years, but his dark legacy has echoed for 2 millennia. In the immediate aftermath, the Senate tried to completely erase him from history, ordering his statues destroyed in an act called damnatio memoria. But you can't erase a memory that terrifying. The story became a cautionary tale, a chilling look at what happens when absolute power falls into the hands of a broken mind. So, was Caligula born a monster, or was he made one by a catastrophic illness? Was it all madness, or was some of it a calculated, cruel attempt to create an absolute monarchy free from any rules? The ancient sources, mostly written by the senators he tormented, paint a picture of a depraved madman, and it's hard to separate the truth from the propaganda. What is certain is that his brief, violent reign left a permanent scar on Rome. He pushed the power of an emperor to its absolute limit. revealing the terrifying weakness of a system that placed the fate of millions in the hands of one single fallible man. The little boy they called Little Boots grew up to leave a footprint of terror so deep that it would never. He was Rome's golden boy, its divine ruler, and in the end, its butcher.